Well, what I would say is that I think it's very important today to build the next generation of managers in India. And I would be very happy to see a new generation of managers who are conscious, as I said, regarding the ecological problems and who feel free intellectually and spiritually regarding the pressure of the United States. I think it's very important for us who are not North American to keep our freedom and to stay free, even intellectually, regarding all the ideology that is pushed by the United States.
Absolutely. So,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
So my name is Amrita Dhillon and I'm a professor at the University of Warwick. My research is mainly on the interaction between politics and economics. It's important because while economists usually usually assume that the government is a very benevolent social planner, in reality that's not the case. Governance has become a very important issue, so so I feel it's really relevant and important to study and analyze what happens when governments are assumed to be more realistic. I mean, we make more realistic assumptions about the government that it's not really benevolent but is composed of individuals who could in fact be very motivated by private benefits rather than social benefits. And that's what usually I work on, and this workshop that I'm running here is focusing on this issue as well.
Okay. So, what do you have to say about the workshop initiative that has been taken by MYRA, Warwick, EPIT all together in India, that we've come up with something a workshop on such big issues which are present here. So what would you like to say about the initiative that has been taken up by an Indian B school which is just coming up?
Yeah. So I think the workshop happens in the right country at the right time. So India, as we know, corruption is a very hot topic in India right now with the Anna Hazare movement, and so it's made the public much more aware of this issue of corruption. And so the question arises, why does it survive? Why does it survive and why does it persist for so long in our country? Whereas, clearly there are countries like, say, Singapore, which have successfully managed to tackle the issue of corruption and are now doing really well. I feel it's like the most important obstacle to growth in the Indian economy, the governance issue, and this seems to be quite a consensus among economists that this is indeed the case.
Absolutely.
So that's why this workshop comes at the right time and at the right place, and the University of Warwick and basically I approached the university to fund this workshop, and I was looking for a venue in India and happened to come across this new business school, MYRA, which is a small and very happening place. It's a growing place where the founders are clearly very interested in promoting academic research and serious academic research.
Absolutely. After the workshop, there are certain outputs, the results, the ideas. How do you think that can be implemented towards the betterment of the economy?
Well, so at the moment, the research is more, like all academic research, we are focusing on trying to understand the causes of corruption, and some of the papers here looked at what effects corruption has on growth, for example, and what could be the side effects of it. So basically the idea is that once you know what are the underlying reasons that causes corruption to persist in society, then something could be done about those factors. And so the outputs of the workshop are coming out in a special issue of the Journal of Public Economic Theory, and we will try to disseminate this to policymakers as much as we can. As you know, the special editor of the journal is Kaushik Basu, who is the chief economist of the World Bank, so hopefully we will get some exposure.
And what do you have to say about, for example, MYRA is again a new B school coming up. So you've seen the environment, ma'am. So how is this environment important for academics, research, collaborations? How important an environment plays a role in the studies?
So my experience of MYRA is basically through this workshop and through the founder members. as well as through the dean of the business school. And my experience of all three has been that they are extremely open to to high quality research, and the dean is in fact only looking at hiring academics who are research active. So I think this is one of the selling points of this new business school, the fact that they focus on this frontiers of research. They hire academics who are working on the frontiers, and they are open to having a lot of to getting academic credibility through having these workshops and conferences here.
And just one simple last question here, that like how important is the global perspective if we talk about in today's world? How do we relate the same to the economy? The global perspective, if in terms of if I talk about the B school that is coming up, how important global perspective is in today's world? Particularly India, if we talk about maybe.
Yeah.
How does international perspective think?
So I suppose you're asking me about exposure, international exposure.
International exposure, how important it is.
So
right?
yeah, I think it's crucial because I mean we don't want schools or business schools in India which are completely insulated from the rest of the world, because it's very easy to do in a protected environment where there is no foreign competition. So universities are not allowed to come into this and set up shop here. So in this protected environment, I think it's crucial to have international scholars coming in and interacting frequently with the students and the faculty. I think that's really crucial to get a competitive advantage, given the fact that many of our Indian, the students from India want to go abroad to find jobs, or even within India want to find jobs in multinational companies, and they're competing in a global workplace, basically.
Just one last thing, that how higher education can help for the development of the society and economy? How much higher education plays a role here?
Well, higher education obviously provides much needed skills, skills in running companies or in various types of different types of organizations, in innovation, in research. And I mean, at some level, that's sort of the most essential factor in the increasing the rate of growth of the country in the long run. The types of human capital we have, how much we invest in human capital. So higher education is something that increases the skill of the workforce, and that's ultimately one of the most important factors in economic growth.
Any advice to the MBA aspirants or suggestions? And we'll end it.
Well, my advice would be that they should be creative, and they should ask a lot of questions. If they're once they do come to class, ask a lot of questions, be curious and inquisitive, and take the initiative.
That would be all, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
They tell you what they do in consulting, they advertise on their websites.
Intro.
Okay, so my name is Mikhail Drugov. I work in Madrid, in Spain, in the university called Carlos III of Madrid. And well, I work on applied theory, and I'm particularly interested in corruption and governance more generally, because it's a very interesting and important topic, and also because I'm Russian. In Russia we have a lot of corruption, so I have a lot of experience, anecdotes from my friends, etc. So there is a lot of knowledge that I already have, and I find it fascinating.
So, like I would like to know like the workshop initiative that has been taken up by MYRA Warwick School and the APED. So what do you have to say about the kind of initiative that has been taken up in India, and MYRA School of Business is just coming up? You've seen the environment and everything. So what would you like to say about the initiative that has been taken up, how it helps the economy?
This workshop, you mean?
Absolutely.
This workshop?
Yeah, this particular workshop.
Yeah, so no, as I said, that's a very important topic, and for some countries like Russia and India, that's a very important topic, and it's essentially the primary concern. in some respect, how to develop economy, well, we need to fight corruption. And so it's really great that Varro came here, that we can exchange experience, and hopefully there will be later some policy implications from this research that we are doing, and that they will really help to fight corruption.
Absolutely. And so you've seen the environment here at the MYRA campus. So what do you feel about the environment? How environment plays a role when it comes to academics and teaching? How things work if the environment is like this?
Yeah, I think that the environment, in the sense that, say, the design of the rooms and how open it is, it has really incredibly large consequences that some people are not realizing or have been not realizing in the past. Is essentially kind of how open you feel, how easily you communicate with students. For example, like here, you're sort of on the same level with students. In some other rooms, in other universities, you're higher or you're separated by something physical, and that of course breaks any contact. It becomes really like a lecture instead of a conversation. And of course, for graduate training, for a business school, it should be more like a conversation, not a lecture.
Absolutely. And so what do you feel about how much from the global perspective in today's world, how much the international things help the economy? For example, like again, MYRA is coming up, and we have such kind of collaborations, because business school is not only about the academics. So when it comes to the global perspectives, what would you like to say? How important it is to see that global scenario in mind?
Yeah, I think it's very important because on one hand, of course, every country, every region, every town has its own features that are specific, but then there are a lot of things that are common to several states, countries, regions, etc. So, these big things, sometimes it's hard to see them, because if you just know what is surrounding you, you cannot separate things. And you cannot see what is local and what is global. Now, once you have experience from different countries, then it's much easier and you can learn a lot from experience of other countries. For example, when you fight corruption, India is not the first one in doing that, so it can learn a lot from other countries. And some countries were successful. So there's a lot to learn.
Absolutely. And so just one last question, that how higher education can really help for the development of the society, for the economy, how higher education helps?
So I think that higher education, actually any education, just first should teach you to think. And once you think, it means that, there is much more space for civil society, you are going to question, you are going to be more active, and it's really crucial. So democracy cannot work if people don't think.
Absolutely. Just any advice or suggestions to the MBA aspirants maybe who are coming up at MYRA?
No, just good luck, study a lot, that's very important. And enjoy what you are studying. If you don't enjoy, you won't go far. So you need to find pleasure in what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot. Intro, you can go.
I'm Thomas Kroll. I'm working at the School of International Public Affairs at Columbia University in New York. And I'm really glad to be here at this workshop, wonderfully organized, and I enjoyed my time a lot. It was also my first time in India, so it was an experience.
Okay, and maybe something on your resource that you would like to talk about here? Something on your research?
I'm working on commercial lobbying activities, so mostly on political influence activities by firms who operate for profits, who offer their services for multiple clients. And it's mostly motivated by observations in the United States and in Europe. However, during this workshop I realized that there's also similar patterns going on in India. That's also a very interesting experience for me.
And what would you like to what would you like to say about the workshop initiative that has been taken up by MYRA Warwick and APIT together? I mean, how does that help? And about the initiative, yeah.
So I think it was a wonderfully organized workshop. I really appreciate it. It was also nice to meet scholars from other universities again and new scholars. So it's very nice from the network perspective, especially to facilitate this communication from people from Spain, the UK, from the United States, and so I'm really glad that this workshop was hosted here in India, also meeting Indian scholars and Indian colleagues, what is usually kind of difficult. So I think it's a great idea to have this academic exchange across different universities and to have the university hosting such an event.
Again, you've seen the MYRA campus now, the environment. So how do you think that the environment plays a role when it comes to academics, research? What environment has to play a role?
Yeah, so I think the campus looks really promising, and it reminds me a little bit of my undergraduate times when I had a similar campus a little bit outside of town, so it was relatively quiet. And so the whole dynamics were really interesting amongst students with faculty, relatively close, and you had a break, in quotes, from real world, and you could think about issues from a completely different perspective. And I think it seems to be a nice campus for something like this, to take a break and to really reflect what was going outside of campus.
Absolutely. And like how important you feel is the global perspective, the global exposure which is required to the students which are at India, maybe I would say,
Right.
for example.
Well, I think the global exchange was always one of the key elements of academia, and it was always the case. That we observe, given the globalization, given multinational companies, multinational organizations, the internet, all these countries come closer together, and we communicate now on almost all dimensions with people from different countries. So I think it is important to have global exchange, also to train people in a global exchange, having international renowned faculty, giving students access to faculty in this way. I think it's a great opportunity for students.
And just one last thing, I mean, how higher education plays a role when it comes to the development of society and the economy.
Right.
How much these research and higher education play a role here?
I think higher education is one of the fundamentals. It should be broad and basic education for every citizen in society, and giving access to talented students for a higher education and to exchange in thought in an academic setting. I think it's very important. For policymakers, for businessmen, for scholars, I think it's very important to have this exchange.
Just some suggestions and advices to the MBA aspirants who are coming to MYRA now.
Well, I think what I always tell my students is work hard and enjoy your time being a student. It's a short period of time, so enjoy it, work hard, and be open. That's the most important thing. And to remember, even if the university time is over, learning never stops. So I think this should be one of the key preparations for students.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Done?
Yeah.
Okay.